Brad. It's great to be here in Idaho, and I will just say, as somebody that lives in the northern part of Florida now in Tallahassee, this weather's fine. This is not much different than what we've had in the morning. I was expecting colder, so that's really, really great to see. And I would also just like to point out for the record, I've got a son in first grade who's a big prognosticator in terms of football predictions. And for the record, in the college football playoffs, he picked, not successfully, but he picked Boise State to beat Penn State. And he was rooting for Boise State to beat Penn State. But it was cool coming in, being able to see the famed blue field as we were coming in, and to be able to be here with a lot of like-minded folks. I used to say, until someone corrected me, that Florida, since I became governor, has led the nation in economic growth. And a lot of it is because we're comparing New York, California, Illinois, some of those states. And someone said, actually, Idaho has grown a little bit more than Florida over that. So Idaho has had the most GDP growth since 2019, Florida a close second. And if you look at a lot of the policies that have been done in Idaho, there's a lot of commonality with Florida, universal school choice. They just enacted the death penalty for pedophiles, which we did a couple years ago, and we're eventually going to get the U.S. Supreme Court to reverse a bad decision it made in Kennedy versus Louisiana. They've done great things in the legislature on medical freedom. So I think that there's a lot of really good stuff happening in Idaho. And what brings me here today is I've been a supporter of a long time to make some changes to how Congress operates, particularly how they're spending our money. And if you look at when the turn of the 21st century happened, the U.S. debt from 1789, when the Constitution was ratified and the new government took hold, until the year 2000, the U.S. accumulated $5.6 trillion in debt. And even at that time, people were saying that that was a problem. Well, fast forward 25 years. The national debt's now at $36+ trillion. And as a proud conservative and as a proud Republican, I have no problem pointing out the truth that this is both parties in Washington that have created this mess. As much as I'd like to come up here and blame the Democrats, the fact of the matter is it's happened under both parties. The budget that was just passed in the U.S. House of Representatives by the Republicans forecasts the debt to be, in the year 2035, $56 trillion. At what point is this just going to break our country? I think we all know there's a problem. I am convinced that you are not going to have Congress all of a sudden change its behavior for the long term. I think the reason we've gotten in this with respect to fiscal is because there are certain incentives for the people that are in Washington to behave the way they do, and we need to change those incentives. And that involves we, the people in our states, doing what the Founding Fathers put in the Constitution to propose an amendment to provide some of those constraints on their behavior, in this case, requiring a balanced budget for the U.S. government. Now, I have to balance the budget in Florida. Idaho has to balance the budget. Don't tell me it can't be done. When I became governor in 2019, if you take all the debt in the history of Florida from the 1840s when we became a state that we've accumulated until I became governor, just in my tenure, we've paid off 41% of the state's total debt. Now, that's not just an annual surplus. We run that, but we're actually digging in, taking our surplus, doing tax cuts and other things, but then paying down this debt. By the time my term expires, we will likely have paid down over half of the state's debt that was accumulated over 180 years ago. We had to make tough choices, but part of the reason we were able to do that is because there's never a question that we have to at least balance the budget. So it's either balanced or surplus. We don't have the option to do others, so people understand that, and they're more willing to make really important decisions. So Idaho has an opportunity to certify this proposed amendment under Article 5 of the Constitution. There have been 27 states, including Florida, that have done it. As Governor Little mentioned, I'm going to be going to Montana, and we're going to be meeting with those folks. If Idaho and Montana join the fight, that gets us to 29. There's a couple other states that are on the precipice as well. You need 34 states to trigger Article 5, where you would actually write an amendment, and then eventually send to the states for ratification. I don't think it would even get that far. I think if you got to 33 states, I think Congress would see the writing on the wall, and I think they would rush to write an amendment that they would then pass and then send to the states for ratification. Keep in mind, it requires 3/4 of the states to ratify any changes to the Constitution. I'm a small c conservative. I'm a big believer that the Founding Fathers did better than anyone has ever done in devising a plan of government. It's not something that I would do lightly, asking for an amendment to the Constitution. But we can't keep doing the same things up there and all of a sudden just hoping that we're going to get different results. I think we know that this is hardwired to go in a certain direction, and at some point we the people have it within our power to choose a different course, and that's what we're here to do, to be able to do. So we had a great meeting with a lot of the legislators, really great questions. I think people are thinking very deeply about the country's future. But we can sit here and say, oh, Idaho's economy's growing, they're doing this great legislation, Florida's doing all this stuff, and that's great. And when the Biden administration was in, we had to fight them on almost everything to be able to do that. But at some point, the states are not going to even be able to be successful if the federal government just completely goes off the rail with the fiscal. $56 trillion in 10 years, what's the interest on the debt going to look like at that point? I think it'll be really, really problematic as you're seeing it. So we have an opportunity to do something. I think the Founding Fathers understood that wherever the seat of government was going to end up, and they didn't know it was going to be in Washington, D.C. when they did when they did the Constitution, they knew that there would be a danger where we just go off the rails.